like that. That's nice.
Hello, I am Samara Andrews. And so before I get any further, I want to introduce myself, right? For some of you who do not know me. So again, Samara Andrews, CEO and founder of Fye Finance, right? Also an MBA in finance is what I hold. Okay, and I've also had the experience of being able to work with large companies, Fortune 500 companies, over a course of 17 years with accounting experience, right? Working with companies like Caterpillar, Lazada, and Anthony International, just to name a few. And it's because of this knowledge, it's because of this experience that I decided to create a master class, right? But I want to ask you a few questions before we dive into what that master class is all about. So the first question I want to ask you is, are you tired of overpaying in taxes? Okay. Are you feeling like at the end of the year, all of your hard-earned money is just given back to the IRS? Now, most importantly, do you want to do something about it, right? So if you answered yes to any of those questions, then I urge you to listen until the end of this ad, and then afterwards, you're going to want to sign up. So I've designed a master class, right, in which I have cracked the tax code. That's right. I'm sure you remember a few years back, our former president, Donald Trump, did not pay taxes. Some of us were upset. Some of us were intrigued, right? So I was curious. I wanted to know, how was he able to not pay taxes? And so I went to work with my years of experience, my knowledge, and I put all of those in this tax course that I'm going to be offering to you. And we call it the Trump Effect Master Class, okay? So what you're going to be getting in this master class is we're going to be covering tax shelters, around investments, around retirement planning, around medical planning. We're going to be covering tax credits, right? All of the above. So I'm excited for you to join and for you to take your first step towards the Trump effect and putting it into effect in your life. See you soon. Hey, Fye Finance family, welcome to Flip It with Samara, a show designed to flip the narrative on how we view and use finances in both our personal and business settings. So tonight we have a guest that's going to be joining me. But before we dive into that, I also want to share with you a lot of new things that are going to be coming your way, right? For instance, if you have not already, we definitely encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube page, okay? Make sure that you visit our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, right, when you see some content that you like. But we definitely encourage you to do so because we share content with you week over week that's relevant, right, and informative. And so we definitely want you to take advantage of this free information, okay? A lot of good information, not only for business owners, but also for individuals, but especially for my entrepreneurs, right? So we definitely want you to stay connected. So make sure you subscribe. We are also now have a podcast channel, right? So we're featured on Amazon, Audible, Apple, Spotify. So we definitely want you to check us out. Check out the podcast as well, right? Listen to it when you're driving into work, okay? Right? So definitely make sure that you connect with us along that platform as well. And then we have a big event coming up. So I want you to save the date for our Connect and Elevate Summit coming in January. Okay, January 14th. And we're going to have a panel of outstanding speakers in their own right, right? People that are going to come before you from HR, right? So we have a human resource specialist that's going to be talking to you, expert rather. We have a communication expert, or I should say a relationship expert, who is also the guest for tonight. And then we're going to have a branding expert as well. And the list goes on, but you definitely want to make sure that you reserve your spot. We definitely have already sent out the flyer with the link in order for you to reserve your spot, and spaces will be limited. So you definitely want to jump in there, get your spot as soon as possible. And as a special bonus, I'm going to be announcing a special gift that we're going to give to all the attendees. Okay, so definitely save the date, January 14th. And make sure that you connect with us to reserve your spot. Okay, we don't want you to miss that. It's going to be packed with a lot of good information and some phenomenal people speaking on that platform, okay? And then the next thing, right, is tax season. Tax season is going to be in full effect come February of 2022. And so we are ramping up for it. So when tax season comes, we usually like to send out a lot of emails with information on things that we want you to start preparing for. We usually provide checklists to all of our returning clients so that they can start preparing their taxes, or I should say start preparing their documentation for the taxes. So you definitely want to visit the website, www.fyefinance.com, so you can book a tax consultation. It's a free consultation if you're a new client. If you're a returning client and you have no changes, don't worry. Shoot us an email, let us know, and you will definitely have your spot reserved so that we can handle your tax returns for this upcoming season. But definitely want to make you aware that it's right around the corner, right? So please book those consultations as soon as possible because, again, that's going to be limited space as well, and we will be cutting that off as well, okay? And then the last thing, right, you just saw the ad for the masterclass. So I also want to let you know that masterclass is still out there. This class is designed for the DIYers, right? So if you do your own personal tax returns, you do your own business tax returns, it's for you. Okay. If you are somebody who goes to a tax preparer, right, it's for you as well. You always want to make sure that no matter if you're doing it or someone else is doing it, that you are maximizing your tax savings, okay? And so what you get in this class is you get the laws, the rules, right? We explain the eligibility requirements. We explain what has to be done in order for you to take advantage of these tax returns. Tax strategies, credits. And so we definitely do our due diligence with going through and educating you, right? It's all about education, okay? And then you are able to apply this information to your situation, okay? So you definitely want to make sure that you are taking advantage of that. And then why did we offer this class? We offered this class because we want to help you maximize your tax savings, okay? We don't want you to continue, right, just completing a return, closing your eyes and hoping for the best, right? No, that's not what we're about here at Fye Finance. We're all about education. And so we definitely want to make sure that we educate you and that you are able to implement these things in your situation, okay? So make sure that you visit the website and take advantage of that Trump Effect Masterclass, especially before the end of the year, because most of the items that we discuss in the class, they are time sensitive. And so you have to make sure that you are putting them in place before December 31st of 2021, right? So a lot of information going on, right? A lot of information I'm throwing at you. But we definitely want to make sure that you connect with us across our platforms and that you stay informed as well. All right. So that's why I wanted to share that with you. And then on top of all of that, right, I want to talk about our services. So we do offer bookkeeping services. And we offer accounting, payroll, CFO services for small business owners. So definitely connect with us, right? If you are in need of those services, check out our website so you can see what we're about. So you can see the skill set and the knowledge that we are bringing to the table in order to help you. Okay, so definitely a lot going on again, but we definitely are here to serve you. All right. So I just want to say shout out to everybody that's on. Alicio, thank you. Charles, thank you for the shout out. And so JP, thank you for joining. So without further ado, I want to talk to you. James, what's up? Wanted to talk to you briefly about our guest, right? So this guest on tonight is also going to be a guest on our main event in the summit, right? So I encourage you to stay tuned, hear what this brother has to say. It's always a pleasure when I have the opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with this brother. I have had the honor of being on his show before, and so always a great just conversation, right? It's all about just conversation. And I learn so much every single time I tune into his show and every single time we communicate, right? So definitely am honored and privileged that he agreed to come on tonight. And again, he is also going to be one of the featured panelists at the summit. So you are definitely going to want to sign up after you hear what this brother has to say on tonight. So without further ado, I am going to bring on Charles Jackson. Hey, Charles, how are you?
Hello, Samira. Thank you for that welcome. Wow. I'm so honored to be here and honored and super excited to be a guest at this upcoming summit. But man, thank you so much for this invite. I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah, so I am going to give you the opportunity to tell us about yourself, introduce yourself to the Fye Finance family, because I feel like you would probably do a much better job than me.
Well, I'll say this. First and foremost, I think the Fye Finance family is great. They're in the chat, lighting up the chats with comments already each
Yes,
week. I'm in there with them, so I'm part of the family.
you
But for
are.
those of you who don't know me yet, I am Charles Jackson. I lead a consultancy, a leadership consultancy called Charles Jackson Media, as well as a marriage and family organization called You Before Me. My goal, my mission, what I believe I've been called to do right now is help individuals with their relationships, whether it's family relationships or professional relationships. I am the human relation strategist, and it started with me and my wife doing marriage coaching. Back in 2014, we began to coach couples because we had a mission to save marriages on the brink of divorce, and really just help families have a healthier home environment. And so that's really what set me down this path of understanding the importance of relationships. So by establishing healthy relationships, the home environment was better, communities were better, work environments are better. Also, through Charles Jackson Media, I go into organizations and I help leaders develop better relationships with their subordinates, those under them, those who have been placed under their care, right? Not you're in charge of these individuals, but the individuals that you've been charged with taking care of. I help leaders build healthy relationships because, again, I believe the healthier the relationships we can have, the stronger our teams will be, the stronger and the more innovative our companies will be, our communities are better, and the world is better from that respect. And that includes healthier relationships with yourself. It starts with how you see yourself, how you think about yourself, what you believe about yourself. Belief drives behavior. And so if we can shape the way we think about ourselves, it's ultimately going to influence how we interact with other people. So again, all about relationships, personal and professional relationships. That is what I do, and I am pleased to be here with you all tonight.
Well, thank you. That was a wonderful introduction. So you said something that sparked something in me.
Okay.
We got some audio playing in the background. Can you hear that too, Charles?
I
Let's
don't
see if we
hear
can
it. We're
stop.
we're clear.
You don't hear the audio?
I
I hear
don't.
some audio playing in the background. Give us one moment. Let's get this audio stopped because I can't hear you.
Okay.
All right. Let's see if we can close out the thing. Give me one moment.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. You don't hear any audio, Charles?
I don't. I just hear
Okay.
you
All
loud
right.
and clear.
So it's just in my ear, but it's okay. Okay.
Like
So you,
you're ringing from that introduction. That's what it is. You got so
right.
much running
Maybe
through your
that's what
mind
it
right now. It
is.
sounds like a song.
Right. So you were saying that belief drives behavior, right?
Absolutely.
And I want to talk about that because during the pandemic, I feel like that was an opportunity for a lot of us to really get to know ourselves, right? Most of
Mhm.
us we were stuck in a home,
Right.
right? We were
Right.
working from home, couldn't go out as frequently, right? We didn't have that communication or connection, I should say, on a face-to-face basis with other people. So I felt like it was an opportunity where you really had to learn more, like you got to learn more about yourself, right?
Yes.
And so with that, some people didn't like what they saw, right? Like you had a lot of people that had to go to therapy because they were working through some
Right.
things, right? And that's
Right.
okay. And I think that it was powerful that people realized that, man, I really don't like who this
Mm,
person is, right? And now I want to
yeah.
do something about it. Did
Yes.
you see a change in your approach towards like what you do, especially in the corporate setting, but also in a personal setting due to the pandemic? Did you see like more people wanting to, I guess, work on their own behavior?
Yes, absolutely. Um, who and what we believe about ourselves is going to dictate the opportunities we pursue, the relationships we build, and the life that we create for ourselves. And so during the pandemic, as we kind of sat and wrestled with our thoughts, as we sat and we looked across from the table at our spouse who we really hadn't been communicating with because life was so busy previously, I didn't have to really sit down and talk to my spouse because I could go to work. I could work overtime. I had my hobbies, all of these things. Kids, I really didn't realize that there was a disconnect between me and my kids and how we speak to one another. I came home more and more each day, understanding that there was a lack of trust with my supervisor. And so as I sat around the table or outside on the patio or wherever it was, I was hanging out at the end of the day after maybe working virtually. I begin to process all of this. And I say I'm talking about the individuals that was coming to me for coaching during this time. And they realized that so much of what they were believing about themselves, this lack of confidence in themselves as a husband, lack of
Gotcha.
confidence in themselves as a good parent, lack of confidence in themselves as a director because that's the title they held, or as an entrepreneur. Just this
Right.
lack of confidence started to sink in, and they felt like it was them, right? It wasn't everybody else that I've been placing blame on. It was me. And so what do I need to do? And that's really what I saw every time somebody would come to me. It was, I'm not here because of my spouse. I'm not here because of, my boss or my children. I'm not necessarily liking who I am and the things that
Right.
I'm thinking. And we were saying some very debilitating and damaging things about ourselves in those quiet moments, in those times where we were sitting at the house while we weren't working and while we couldn't go out and socialize. We were saying some things about ourselves that was going to prevent us from loving ourselves and then loving others.
Right.
And so I even did a little pivot because most of my coaching was really centered around leaders, right? Helping leaders having a better relationship with those under their charge. And I really dove into that space of helping us embrace who we are and get to know us and wrestle with our thoughts, our beliefs, debilitating beliefs about ourselves and the world around us and how folks see us. So that way we can increase our mental well being and overall well being, as you alluded to, so that we can be that good spouse, that good neighbor,
Right.
that good employee, and that good leader.
Right. That reminds me, Charles, of the saying of like hurting people hurt people. And
Yeah.
so when we don't take the time to first start with ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
examine like what's going on and then
Yeah.
have the courage, right, to say, I
Mm.
want to change, I want to be better, and we continue on that path of just hurt, then what
Yeah.
happens is, unfortunately, everybody that's connected to us, right, that we're close to in
Right.
that inner circle, we end up hurting them. They become collateral damage, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so I'm
Yeah.
glad you said that. I'm
Everything
sorry.
that we do, I'm realizing this more and more, is really just an overflow of what's already inside of us. What's either been done to us, what we've done to ourselves, what
Right,
we've learned, what we've studied, what we've processed, what we wrestle with late at night, it comes out in some type of form,
right,
whether it's positive or negative, right? Whether
right,
it's ambition or giving up, whether it's words that are positive or negative words. It's
right.
just everything that we do, if we think about it, it's really just an overflow of what's on the inside of us or an outpouring of what's on the inside of us. And when somebody boils over and it comes out, it's just been sitting and festering anyway. So yeah, you're exactly right.
Wow. That reminds me of a saying that I said, because I always got to bring it back to finances, right? So
Yeah.
so when I talk about like people chasing money, right? I tell
Okay.
people that money only makes you more of what you already are. So if
Woo.
you're
Stop it.
already, if you're already a person who is selfish, right?
Come on.
Somebody who, I'm just, let's be
Come
100,
on.
right? The more you achieve as far as success, right? Money is just going to further, right, that
Wow.
behavior. That's all it's going to
Wow.
do.
So you're saying I don't get rich and all of a sudden I become generous and benevolent?
No,
That
that doesn't
oh.
happen. That doesn't happen. Neither does it fix problems, right? You've seen stories, I'm sure, about millionaires, billionaires committing suicide,
Right.
right? So
I have.
it's not going to change the person, right? It's not going to fix your problem. And so that's why
Wow.
with the Fye Finance family, I feel like I try to teach that money is a tool, right? It's not
Okay.
the end game, right? So we're talking
Yeah.
about building wealth. And one way of, making sure that you're wealthy, that also includes your health, like your mental state, your
Yes.
health,
Yes.
like all of that is a source of wealth, right? You feel
Mm.
wealthy when you are surrounded with when you are mentally stable, when you're surrounded with a good community, a support system. So it's things like that that I feel are important. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you, brother, because when I tell
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
it takes a
Yeah.
special person to step in the lane and do what you do, and so
Thank
effectively.
you.
So we have a question from Casey. He is asking, what steps would you recommend an individual to improve their behavior or belief? That's a really good question, Casey.
Yes. Yes. That is. So I always start here. Our beliefs they're predicated on things that we've consumed, that we spoke about ourselves, or that have been spoken to us, right? And so we have to start by getting in quiet spaces where we can really start to speak against those lies that we've been believing about ourselves or about other people or about other things. So find that morning routine, meditation, yoga, listening to some type of music, just relaxing and chilling. And just for the first couple days, I have people just, what is it that you think about in the mornings when it's quiet? What
Right.
is it that you're saying to yourself? And then kind of write it down. Man, I believe this about myself. I believe this about my neighbor. I believe this about the opposite race. I believe this about money. I believe this about wealth. Like kind of write those things
Right.
down. See what is true and a reality, right? And then see what might be a lie that's preventing you from fulfilling certain things in your life. And that's kind of that beginning stage because you have to now replace those lies that we've either consumed or that have been spoken over us. You can't make it in this market during COVID trying to do real estate or trying to start a business. And then that gets in your head and you think, I can't make it in this market. I need to stay with my 9 to 5. What is it that you believing to be true that might necessarily not be true?
Right.
So let's tackle that. And that's always that starting point of pinpointing those lies or debilitating beliefs and replacing them with some type of truth.
Wow. Now that's a mouthful, right? And that's something that I definitely think is easier said than done,
Absolutely.
right?
We don't get it the first week. We don't get it the second week sometimes. It has to become a routine because again, some of us are believing things about ourselves that our parents said when we were kids.
Right.
We were abandoned maybe when we were younger. We've never been in a financially stable home. We don't have education history of degrees in our family or business owners in our family or successful marriages in our family. And so some of it is historical, so historical that it is going to take time. But if anything is going to change in our lives, our habits and our routines have to change on a consistent basis to undo all of that that's been done to us and that we've actually done to ourselves too.
Wow. Yep. And that's the thing about habits, right? we're trying to undo what probably has taken years to
Hmm.
create, right? And I've read somewhere once that it takes 20 days to create a habit. And
Yeah.
so we have to be intentional about
Yes.
wanting to change and then implementing these things and doing them in a way where it becomes habitual, where it's like second nature, so to speak.
Absolutely.
So definitely some good tips. I hope you were writing that down, Casey. So he definitely
No, that's a
answered your
great
question.
question.
Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
great
I
question.
shared with my followers this week that consistency compounds
That's
over
good.
over time. Over time. If we remain consistent, we'll reap the rewards of stuff that we did consistently last month, a month from now, or maybe even a year from now. But consistency is compounding.
Now you know you in my lane, right?
I know.
Because
I threw that word out there. Company. She's like, wait a minute. So is interest and
that's
money.
right. And that's what I tell the five family, right? Like
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
are consistent with a thing, it's not that you're not gonna get rich overnight, right? But if you're
Right.
consistent with contributing to your retirement fund, right? And it
Mm,
will continue to
it
build,
was
right? That
right, right.
compound interest will kick in for you. So
Yes.
consistency definitely does compound. So sorry, I had to plug in finance, y'all. This is still a finance show for my Fye Finance family, okay? But definitely that can be applicable among so many different areas
Yes.
in our lives. So that is awesome. Okay. So, one thing that I want to talk about, and it's definitely on the subject of communication, relationship, especially. Okay.
Yes.
In the news recently, and I don't know if you heard about this particular event, but there was a CEO, Vishal Garg, with
Okay.
better.com. Okay. And what he did recently was he decided to go on a Zoom call and he laid off 900 people over a Zoom call. So,
Mm,
as a leader, right? Where we're talking
mm.
about relationship, right? So we talked
Yeah.
about relationship in the personal. We talked about how it's a problem with us that we got to fix first.
Right.
So now let's bring that full circle, okay?
Yeah.
As a leader, right? And you're talking about the relationship that you are establishing with your employees. Do you think there was a better way that that could have been handled?
Absolutely. I think one of the things I learned early on in leadership, and I'm glad I learned it because I feel like it has contributed to the success I had in the Marine Corps and thereafter in corporate America, and now with my leadership consultancy, is that we have to be able to lead with our head and our heart. Business acumen and metrics, it's no longer the key for interacting and having a successful business when you have employees. For for a while, it was. I think they probably realized that's not the case anymore.
Right.
But most employees, most leaders feel like most people are leaving a job because of money. But 89% of companies, if you ask them, why are people leaving? Why are your employees leaving? They'll say, oh, they got better offers for more money. But only 12% of employees have actually reported that they left a company because of money. It's about 12%, right? 58% of people say that they trust a stranger more than their boss. And I'm sharing these stats for a reason to answer your question. 79% of people who quit say they felt a lack of appreciation from the leader. Only 12%, like I said, say they left for money. But employees feel like, and stats that they've sent out there say 89% of people are leaving because of money. That's not the case. What I'm trying to say is people aren't leaving companies. They're leaving leaders. They're divorcing leaders because if you can't lead with your head and your heart, people are not going to feel connected to you nor your company, right? I taught a course recently, creating a culture of connection in the digital age. And also another one I'm teaching right now is 4 steps to creating a corporate culture of connection. Why am I talking about connection so much? Because for you to get on a Zoom call, I think you said it was, and let
You can
900
unmute
people
me.
go in that manner, It lacks connection. You talked about the pandemic and what it did to separate us and uproot us from a social standpoint. We've always craved connections, but even more so, having lost those social connections, employees are craving more of a connection with the place that they're going to go and spend 8, 10, maybe even 12 hours a day. And so if leaders aren't intentional about building healthy relationships within their organizations, amongst their leaders, and amongst those who are working side by side one another, you'll be able to get on a call with 900 people and let them go all at one time and sort of this mass firing, almost like what they used to call it back in the day, like a firing squad lines up and just
Right.
takes people out, right?
Right.
Because there's no intimacy there. There's
Right.
a lack of connection there for an employee to be able to do that. So I think that's extremely sad. You think about the holidays, you think about the service that I might have put into the company, and then you get on a call, just kind of let me go like this. That has to be extremely disheartening.
Right. I mean, I totally agree. Even if there were a severance package offered, right? It doesn't change the fact that you did this on a Zoom call.
Yeah,
Like that
yeah,
to me was very impersonal and almost, it definitely speaks to the character of the person, right? Delivering the
right,
message.
right.
I
Yeah.
feel like there was definitely another way that that could have been done. To your
There are a
point,
lot of
right?
other ways.
That could have been done to your point, that was more intimate and showed that he
Yeah.
truly cared. And I guess my thought process was, where were your HR people? Like, where were
Mm-hmm.
you know what I
Or your
mean? Like,
advisors,
yeah,
who's advising you? Where's your executive advisor? What is
like
HR saying about this?
nobody said
Yeah.
anything. Like that was what was weird. And so a lot of what I saw after seeing that story was everybody was tagging it saying, hey, this is why you're seeing this mass exodus from corporate America. This is why people are like, I think it's called the mass resignation that's going on right
Mm-hmm.
now,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because people are like, they're fed up. They're over it. They're
Yeah.
tired of it. They're like, listen, I got options. Okay.
Yes.
And
The web has given us options. There was a time where if I was going to hear about a job, it was my local newspaper, my
right,
local hiring event, or word of mouth in my local town. I can get a job across the country. I can do the interview, negotiate my salary, get my plane ticket and my housing allowance, all from the comfort of my home in a
right,
blazer with pajama bottoms, and not have to worry about being stuck at a job, right? Because this is the reality. We all want to be a part of a culture that makes us feel like we belong. And I define belonging in terms of in a corporate space or really just anywhere as being accepted, acknowledged, and affirmed by a particular group of people, whether it's family, community, friends, a team that I play on, sports team, or co-workers. I want to be accepted, acknowledged, and affirmed. And so if you create an environment in your organization where it lacks acceptance, acknowledgement, and affirmation, there is going to be a mass resignation that takes place because folks now are seeing the true companies out there with these corporate cultures of connections.
right,
They're being highlighted and elevated.
right,
And those who are just about the money and just you're just another number to us, they're being exposed. And so
correct,
folks are taking their gifts and their talents and their abilities and their time and they're going over here and they're connecting with these companies that actually demonstrate consistently and have been for a while that they care about their employees. Some
right,
call them partners, and they use terms like that. And so, yeah, the people are at home consuming all of this information about these companies out there, and they're like, yeah, there's better out there, and I just didn't think I could make that type of move. But the pandemic is showing folks that we can make that move, and it might be even a better move because now I can work virtually. So
right. That's
companies
another
got to
thing that
step
I
it
was
up.
going to bring up because now, because we had to, right? Especially people in my setting, right? So, I mean, you're an accountant, you're like one of those support groups, right? So,
Mm,
even if you were working for a manufacturing firm, the accounting person doesn't have to be in the building in order to get their job done. And so, what that did was it exposed the fact, right, that we can do our jobs just as efficiently from the
Yeah.
comforts of our home. And it also showed an increase in productivity, like especially at
Right.
my organization. Like people were staying on longer, right? Because you forget you're right at home, right? you
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
just
It's
want to
right
get
there in
it
front of
done.
you.
Right. And so it was
Hmm.
hard for them to come back and, ask for people to come back into the building when we have been able to show you that not only were we effective in doing our job, but we were even more productive. Right. And
Absolutely.
so a lot of people took the approach of, okay, well, then fine, I'll go to a company who does offer a
Yes.
greater work life balance, right? Who doesn't mind me working remote from home, right? So that I can, take my kids to baseball practice or whatever, because you have
Yeah.
a lot of moms in the workforce. And
Yes.
so I think people sometimes, for a long time, right, companies would frown upon that. I remember
Yeah.
feeling horrible. I
Mm.
remember feeling horrible when I had to leave work early to go to one of my children's events. And you would get the looks. You're like, oh goodness, Samara
Right.
leaving again, right? What's going
She
on
get
this
to leave
week?
early
Right,
because she
right.
got a daughter to go pick
You know what
up.
I mean? And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
those days are over, right? I think people
Yeah.
are realizing that no, I can still be a productive employee and still have a work life balance, right? And still
Yes.
be there for my children. And so
Yeah.
I am actually happy that this change is coming. I think that it was long overdue. I think now that employees now, I feel, have the power. They have more
Hmm.
power than they know. Um,
Yes.
and I think that they are now leveraging that power, and in a good
Absolutely.
way.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think it's going to be a lot of great changes that come out of this movement, right? And so, speaking of that, from an entrepreneur standpoint, you talked about people wanting to feel accepted, your employees wanting to feel acknowledged and then affirmed, right? So, as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, I do have people I consult with, and I also have employees. So, can you help me, right, ensure that I am doing that for my employees? Like, how can I reassure them that they are accepted, acknowledged, and affirmed? What can we
Yeah.
do?
That's a good question. I do want to make one plug about something because you brought up women in the workplace and leaving to go take their kids, pick them up from daycare or whatever. The pandemic has shown, I've been doing a lot of research into the studies of how it's affecting women specifically, and a lot more women are being burnt out, believe it or not. Even though they have that flexibility now to work from home, being at home has brought about different challenges with managing the home and the kids at home and being right in the midst of it, right? So it's been a good and a bad, but this is the point I want to bring up. Women are still not being compensated like men, right? They're still
I
not
agree.
getting the titles and position like men are, even though they have been the ones to really step up and lead a lot of these organizations through the pandemic in terms of how they moved and pivoted and the changes that they were making. A lot of women in leadership positions were leading that charge, but yet it's not reflected in their pay. It's not reflected in their compensation packages and time off and all of those things. And so we're still seeing a lot of things to be worked out. The future of work, like you just said, we're not going to be thinking brick and mortar all the time.
Right.
A lot of companies and a lot of people are not going to be thinking brick and mortar. There's a lot of benefits to it. It does give us a lot of time with our families that women specifically or homemakers appreciate it. And now dads are appreciating
Right.
being able to make it to ball games and family events and things like that when we couldn't before because you cut out commuting. Just that
Right.
alone gives some people 2.5 hours back in their day. So the future work is going to be different. We need to keep an eye on it. With that being said, understanding that you still have to make employees feel like they belong, accepted, acknowledged, and affirmed. There's a couple ways that we can approach that, and I use an acronym called RACE, RACE, and RACE is for relate. So just look for ways in which you can relate with those around you, build an immediate connection with them, something very personal, like before a meeting have a moment where it's just strictly not about business, just very impersonal, but professional still, but you find ways to relate to one another. Maybe it's a project that you worked on. I mean, like a previous company, that you are engage with some activities with, and you kind of have a discussion around that, your alma mater, parent and pet ownership, interests, hobbies, a taste in fashion, what it is. You call it breaking the ice or whatever. Just think of it like that. Just kind of socialize, find
Right.
ways to relate to one another. Last week at Thanksgiving, my turkey went up in flames. What? Yours too?
Right.
I'm being silly, but just find ways to relate. Because again, I'm all about relationships. Relationships at the
Right.
core of that is relate. And then we need to acknowledge people. And the easiest way to do that is to give them like public acknowledgement. Hey, last week you held to our values when you went through these steps to help this client. Thank you for that. In an email to them privately or publicly, just acknowledge people. When they're on the call, acknowledge them before the meeting starts. Challenge. We all need to challenge ourselves. We talked about beliefs earlier. What am I believing about my team? What am I believing about my company? What am I believing about myself that's preventing me from connecting with people, or acknowledging them properly? Do I believe we don't have the time? Do I believe they'll think it's silly? We have to kind of challenge ourselves, but also challenge our biases, because sometimes what's preventing us from connecting with people is those obvious differences:
Right.
our race, our gender, our religion, differently able, things like that. And then learn to embrace the differences. Go to somebody, um, and have conversations with them based on the things that you see, especially as an entrepreneur, that is going to allow them to really shine. Like, embrace the fact that, she don't approach this particular task or this situation like I would. Let me embrace this and see what could come out of this. Maybe this might be a new way for us to do X, Y, and Z, and then allow them to lead the way. Like, okay, take us through this. How do you do this? And that also ties into acknowledging people's strengths. Go
Right.
to somebody and say, hey, you're much better at this than I am. Can I get your help with this? Lean in and leverage those things that you see that they're good with. So I use the acronym RACE to help us all connect, especially in a corporate environment. That has helped me a great deal. And so far, everybody I've been able to coach through that have come back and given me great feedback. So I'll give that tip to everybody who's watching tonight. You get
Yeah.
that for free.
Right. And that was an awesome tip, and definitely something that could be applied for entrepreneurs. I mean, we could do the same thing. This is not just for employees, right? You can use this
Yes.
same thing to apply to your clients, your customers, right?
Yes.
Because they
Yes.
want you to embrace where they already are, right? Them as a person.
Yes.
Let me tell you, when I'm dealing with clients, right, there is no client that I deal with the same. Does that make sense? So, like,
Perfect sense.
every client, and then in our initial conversation, I always ask them, like, how do you want to communicate? Because that's important to me. Because if I choose the wrong stream of
There
communication,
you
it
go.
won't be effective.
There you go. There you go. Yes.
And so I always have to like start our relationship in that manner, because
That's so good.
I want to make sure that I'm meeting them like where they are. I'm letting
Yes.
them know I'm embracing you for who you are, right?
So
So
good.
let's make sure that we have a good, effective relationship.
Yes.
So we need to establish these boundaries, these rules, right?
Right.
From the start. So thank you for
Leaders have
that.
yes, we have so much to think about. We have to think about the relationship between me
Right?
and, say, the employee. I have to think about the relationship between employee to employee. I have to think about the relationship the employee with the client. I have to think about our company's relationship with our customers. Like, everything
Everything.
involves some type of relationship. And
Everything.
so, I mean, we're on a financial show, so I can say this. I believe the two biggest factors, motivating factors in life, are relationships and money.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Like, hands down, right? And so
absolutely.
as we think through whatever it is that we're getting ready to do, to me, it comes back to some type of relationship, and oftentimes some type of financial fiscal exchange. And
Right.
so if we can really focus in on those things, like you just said, race, using
Right.
race to relate and interact with a customer, it is a game changer.
Oh, it is. Absolutely, it is. And so, yeah, I think we often forget, like, we spend so much time, right, as entrepreneurs, creating and doing that you could forget to
Yeah.
do that part. You can forget
Yeah,
to
that's true.
implement race, right?
That's
So,
true. That's true.
hopefully,
And I use race specifically because I use it in two ways. Sometimes I use it when I'm specifically teaching, connecting across racial
oh,
differences.
gotcha.
But then I also use it in the corporate space because I feel like we're always just racing to make the next dollar.
Right,
Right. And so I
right,
use race and I'm like, oh yeah, we race. Everybody race, race, race. We're running, 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 trying to make the next dollar, make the company grow.
right,
But if we can establish better relationships, our teams are going to be stronger. They're going to be more innovative. They're going to work together better. They'll resolve workplace conflict quicker.
right,
Our relationships with our customers are going to be better. All of that will make our bottom line grow and make the company strong and very successful out there on the market and all of that. But it starts with those relationships. And so while you're racing, I tell those that I'm, teaching and speaking to, while you're racing to grow the company, start first by growing and establishing healthy relationships. Everything to me would just be a result of that.
man. Let me tell you, Charles, it's always awesome talking to you. I feel like I could go on and on and on, but I want to take some questions.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, before the end of the show. So we had a question from Casey. Casey is asking, what ways would you say companies use digital platforms to promote connection, uplift, encourage, and become accountable?
Yes, great question. So I think I said it in the onset, the content that you're putting out should really just be an overflow of who you are, what you represent, either even in the corporate space and the digital space, right? So we need to start with that digital facelift. Look at your online presence. It matters. Your websites, your social channels, leveraging videos where if you go to a website and you just see words and there's no people, there's no videos, there's nobody that I can make a connection with, I kind of go to the next website. I go to the next company. And so believe it or not, we want to see a face. We want to see people. We want to see smiles. We want to hear real stories and know that I'm giving my dollars or I'm giving my time. I'm donating money, time, or energy to a worthwhile company and cause. And so really start there with that digital facelift. Look at your online presence, see what you're doing. And then make sure that the content is relevant and relatable to folks. Start trying to establish a community around your product, your business, your organization, or your services. Those are some of the immediate ways. And just make everything that you do very genuine, authentic, and real, even in the digital space. So that means you have to think about your commercials, you have to think about your ads and advertisement. Who is it that I'm trying to connect with? Why am I trying to connect with them? And what is the end result of us connecting? Whether it's just them making a purchase, them subscribing, or them going off to do X, Y, and Z. I have to think through those three things.
Cool. That's some really really good information. One thing that you mentioned about like being aware of like your how you are presented on social media, right?
Mhm.
I also have experienced that your silence can also be harmful. So when a company doesn't present themselves as socially aware, right, of are sensitive to what's going
Yeah.
on, I think that that's detrimental to the organization as well because people are looking. Like they're
Yes.
looking to see who is supporting different causes, who is implementing things to provoke
Yeah.
change, right? And if you're still just posting, the normal cookouts, like
Right.
nothing is wrong, then it's like,
Right.
do you
Like, look at
care?
my shoes at the airport.
Like, do you care? You
No
know?
knock to people who do those photos.
Exactly.
I
So I just wanted to make
That's a
sure that
great
I made
point.
that plug too. That hurts.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because what it says is this, and it means you have the courage to speak up and speak out. Right? Not every decision that you make is going to be applauded.
Right.
but that doesn't mean it's not the right decision to make.
Right.
And I'm talking about as a leader, as a business leader in this space. As long as you're genuine and authentic, what your silence does, it leaves people wondering and leaves people with questions about where you stand.
Right.
And if I'm going to invest my time and energy and money, I need to know where you stand on certain things. So
Right.
that's why you have to be careful about what you remain silent about when it comes to certain topics in this day and age.
Absolutely, because there is a thing called the conscious investor. Okay, and then those
Right,
people
right.
actually research you. And
Yes.
before they give you, it doesn't matter how good your books look, it doesn't matter what your projected revenues are. If you do not align with what they feel is someone who is conscious or socially
Yeah.
aware, yeah, you're not going to get their money. I mean, that's
You're
just how it
you
is.
you're all up in portions of my segment for the
Oh,
conference in
oh,
January. I
okay.
don't want to give it
I'll
away,
back
but
off.
you all up in there. Like we
I'm,
about to give them the conference early because you
no,
you almost had me going.
no, let's stop you right there, brother. Let's take one last question before we move on. So we have one other question. So Wayne Andrews asks, how do you handle relationships now that many jobs are being worked from home?
Yes. Um, so all of those things that we talked about, accept,
Right.
acknowledge, affirm, we still want to do that, still practice and embrace. So now you have to be even more intentional because you're not just going to bump into somebody in the hallway, right?
Correct.
So sending cards, and
Mm,
again, it requires an investment,
right.
time and money. You're going to have to sending a card for their birthday, making sure we turn on cameras doing Zooms and
Mm,
these different calls that we talked about earlier, Microsoft Teams call, and trying to see their face, read their emotions. You
right.
can't tell if a person is struggling emotionally and mentally sometimes just by hearing their voice. So
Right.
picking up the phone and giving them a call so that way you can have a more intimate conversation to try and determine, but asking for a video chat with those that you've been called to lead. And again, the CEO can't video chat with 50,000 people, but that's why he have executive leaders and leaders under that, him and leaders under them and leaders under them to make sure that they're having these touch points with employees, establishing social hours, social virtual happy hours where we can still get together and play Kahoot, quiz games or something, or set up some type of live watch event. So think about how you were interacting with family and friends.
Mm,
Some of those same applications now have to be innovatively incorporated into a digital space for really person to person. I think like if you have a family member, you're not able to see them maybe once a week, they're in a different state. You say, hey, we're going to get online and we're going to do VR. We're going to play PlayStation together on Friday night. And that's our game night as a family because we're not going to be able to get together for a while. But then also think about how you can do that in the workspace where it's appropriate. What can we do to make meaningful connections? So I talked about sending greeting cards. I talked about pop-up video call check-ins, like, hey, let's just talk and connect, but just building that same type of camaraderie and togetherness and connectedness. If there's an event that you can go to safely together, take that opportunity, rally people around a cause. Hey, this week is Earth Day and we're going to go out and do this volunteer work and see who wants to come out and do it. Just let them know that you're thinking about them, thinking about ways to engage with them, let them
right.
know they're not just sitting at home stuck working for you and you're not thinking of them. And then ask them, do some polls. Hey, we're considering doing X, Y, and Z,
Right.
lay it out, see what type of feedback you get, take some of those ideas and run with them. We just have to be intentional about now socializing outside of the brick and mortar environment. So that's a great question, Wayne.
Yeah, so thank you so much. All of
Yes.
those things that you shared with us definitely were awesome ways for us to implement, or I should say, encourage, right? The
Yes.
engaged relationship that we want to see. So hopefully, entrepreneurs, you were listening, right? You were taking notes. I know I was taking notes, right? Writing all of this down because I definitely want to make sure that I'm able to apply this as well. So thank you so
Yeah.
much, Charles, for joining on tonight. I still want to
Thank
be
you.
mindful of the time, right? But the conversation was so good, I didn't want it to end. Um, so I appreciate it. You taking
Yeah.
time out to talk to the Fye Finance family tonight. And Fye Finance family, right? You got a little taste, okay, of what he's going to be talking about in the summit. So I know he is going to have so much more information to share with us that's going to help elevate us, right? No
Yes.
matter where we are in our entrepreneur journey, okay? So, Charles, I am going to let you go backstage. Thank you so much. Oh, before you
Thank
go,
you.
can you
Yes.
please share with everybody how to connect with you?
Absolutely. So website, charlesjackson.media on the web. That's where you can connect with me if you need. Actually, it's a media company. So all things media. But first, right there on the screen, we see You Before Me. That's where my wife and I do our marriage and family coaching. Again, premarital coaching, marriage coaching for couples, a faith-based organization helping to save marriages on the brink of divorce and just strengthen marital bonds. That's You Before me. And then
Okay.
again, Charles Jackson Media, my digital space where we do digital design, web design, videography, all things in that space. You can also book me to speak if you need leadership development or consulting. You can go there and connect with me, see what all I have going on and available at charlesjackson.media. And then on social, all your social handles, it's at Charles Jackson Media. Thank you so much for this time in this space. This was wonderful. I enjoyed my time and I enjoyed this show. It is fire. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. So yeah, as they say in the urban settings, it's Phi. Okay, so
Fire.
it's Phi. So thank you, Charles, for joining. Yeah, if you could wait with us, wait for me
Absolutely.
backstage while I say goodbye to everybody. So Fye
Peace.
Finance family, peace out. So Fye Finance family, thank you so much for joining on tonight. Right? Hopefully, you found this to be very informative and very useful. Right? I know that there are definitely some things that I'm going to implement because I am all about wanting to develop those relationships and be intentional about it, right? And so Charles gave us the tools, right? He laid it out on some things that we can do to work on ourselves first and then be able to transition and work on relationships within our inner circle and hopefully outer circle because it definitely all is connected, right? So again, Fye Finance family, make sure that you are following us across all of our social media platforms. Make sure that you are subscribing to our YouTube channel. Make sure that you are listening and subscribing to our podcast channels. And most importantly, make sure that you are registering for this summit. You are going to want to have a seat in this summit, right? Tonight was just a taste, right, of some of the expert panelists that are going to be speaking during the summit. And throughout the rest of this month, we're going to try to highlight some more speakers that will be before you on the summit. So we want to give you a little taste of what you can expect. So remember, save the date, January 14th, right? And you can log on to fivefinance.com/main event in order to get your seat because seats will be limited, okay? So again, thank you for staying with us. I know this was a little out of the norm, but again, I appreciate you connecting and staying with us. And I am going to give you back the rest of your Tuesday evening. So until next time, Fye Finance family, have a wonderful and blessed Tuesday.